Hello and welcome to People in Perspective. My name is Myslinski. Joining me today is Anthony Chico, a member of the Air Force Reserve and a firefighter in Cicero. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, seeing as you're in the Air Force, I would like to ask you, what's your inspiration to join the Air Force?
My inspiration, I always wanted to do it ever since I was a little kid. Growing up, just playing Army guy, I guess. And then when I got older, I was able to fulfill that dream.
So what kind of training did you have to go through to join the Air Force?
So I went through 3 months of basic training. That's where you just learn marching and basic military bearing. And then I went to my advanced school, which was 5 months. And then I did 6 months of on-the-job training in order to be classified as a deployable.
And what do you do in the Air Force?
I'm a civil engineer.
And what do you do?
So engineers, we can build, maintain, and defend air bases around the globe.
All right. What's a day-to-day like in the Air Force?
So for me, day-to-day as a reserve, it's 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. So I go in on the weekends, just complete training for the year, and then our 2 weeks we usually go somewhere and do more like war games. And then when we deploy day-to-day, we are building air bases depending on where they send us. If there's nothing in that country, we'll build it from the ground up, and then we will maintain all the facilities, and then we'll defend it from enemies.
Where have you been deployed?
I've been to Kuwait, Qatar, and Syria.
Are you being deployed anywhere else?
Yes, I have another deployment coming up at the end of this year, and I'll be going to Niger, Africa.
All right. So, seeing as you're also a firefighter, what was your inspiration to be a firefighter?
Pretty much the same thing. I had family that did it, and it's just one of those jobs where everybody kind of wants to be a firefighter as a child. And then if you grow up and are lucky enough to be able to fulfill that dream, then that's what happens.
Yeah. What kind of training did you have to go through to be a firefighter?
So for the firefighter, it is a 3-month academy. And then I also did EMT, so I could help out with ambulance services. And that is a 6-month course.
And did the Air Force pay for your firefighter training?
No, they did not. They do pay for education, but the department that I was working for actually paid for all the training for that.
Oh, that's nice. All right, so where have you worked as a firefighter?
I worked briefly in Riverside, and now I work in Cicero.
Cicero, do you like it more in Cicero?
Cicero is a full-time fire department, so Riverside's a great place, but it's just part-time.
So what are like the hours for part-time?
Part-time paid on call, you go in once a week for training, and you're just paid on call. So they give you a little pager, you go home with it. Whenever the pager goes off, there's a call, and you have to report to the station.
Oh, so if there's no calls, you just don't work?
Don't work, but you don't get paid either. So,
what's a day-to-day like as a firefighter?
So in Cicero, we work 24 hours on, 48 hours off. Typical day, we go in, we have to check out all our rigs and all our equipment. We get a report from the shift that's leaving. They tell us what happened the day before, anything we should be aware of. And then we do training, and then it's typical like a day I guess anybody else would have. We go shopping, we buy food because we have to live there for 24 hours. So we buy food for lunch and we buy food for dinner, cook lunch. After lunch we usually have more training. We usually work out after the training, and then we'll have dinner. And then after dinner, the day is pretty much yours. And then at night, you go to sleep. But throughout that whole period, you're also on call. So anything that comes in, no matter what you're doing, drop it and go on the call.
All right. So what are your jobs if you get a call?
Currently, I'm on an engine. So we go to medical calls. We will assist the ambulance on medical calls. We go to car accidents and, of course, house fires.
House fires? All right. What's the worst thing you've seen as a firefighter?
The worst thing I've seen, or the most memorable, I guess, was probably in 2020. They had riots. So I worked a 48-hour shift. There was a drive-by shooting right in front of our fire station while we were standing outside. So we waited for the people to finish shooting and leave, and then we pulled the people out of the car help them out, and then the next day, just lots more violence and shootings. Yeah, it was kind of like a mini war zone for a day or two.
So you help out people too as a firefighter?
Yes, because I'm also an EMT. So,
EMT? What do you do as an EMT?
EMT is just basic life support. So if somebody gets shot, we basically stop the bleeding, and then we have to get them to the hospital. So we have an ambulance that will transport them to the hospital. If we're first on scene, we don't transport them in an engine or a truck.
Yeah.
So we just keep them alive for as long as possible until the ambulance gets there and they get them to better care in the hospital.
Can you work on the ambulance too? Or
I-
you just up till they get there?
Just up till they get there.
Just till
Because
they
they have
get there.
paramedics that come in. Paramedics do a whole year and a half of training. So they are able to push more of the narcotics that people will need.
And are all firefighters trained EMTs then?
Not all, but most.
Most?
Yes.
All
And
right.
now it's a requirement to be a paramedic.
Be a paramedic? Is that the same thing as an EMT?
It's just more training and you do more things. It would be like a nurse and a doctor almost.
All right.
So a nurse does a lot of things. A doctor goes a little bit more school and does a little bit more things. It's kind of the same with an EMT and a paramedic.
All right. Do you have any regrets after everything you've done?
No regrets. I guess if I could do it over, I didn't join the military initially after high school. I probably would have joined earlier. I guess that's my only regret. Maybe a different branch, see what else is out there.
What were you doing when you didn't join immediately?
Just dead-end jobs, basically.
Dead-end jobs?
Hanging out with friends, dead-end jobs. Didn't like what was going on with that, so decided to change it by joining the military, and then that helped me become a firefighter.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Anthony Chico. This has been People in Perspectives. I'm Myslinski. Thank you for watching.